Those who would oppose us shall fall to ruin and death in the jaws of the dead dragons. And their bodies shall crack, and their hair shall burn, and they will know in their last moments that theirs was the path of folly. For the reign of the dead dragons cannot be forestalled, cannot be thwarted, cannot be broken, and naught will be left save shattered thrones with no rulers. But the dead dragons shall rule the world entire. You'll pardon the smoke, I trust. A man thinks clearer when his pipe keeps the plains at bay. Aye, step close, mind ye that threshold. See how the arch hums. That is Illustrial's doing, bless the lass. She found a door from Silvery Moon to Sigil, long ere most of ye were a twinkle. And in this very chamber she wove her cleverness about it. A well of many worlds fused and spent. Now the frame remembers every road it ever knew. Hold up any trinket with a breath of magic in it, and there, hear that note. The wood chooses a world for ye. A clumsy flourish, and you'll fetch up in Netherall's shadow, or Earth's grey halls, or worse, so tuck your baubles tight, Mordenkainen, afore the door takes a fancy to ye. Ye asked why I called ye hither, the Wizard 3, with all the pride and prickliness that title brings. Sit. Warm your hands. I've something foul to set between us, and I'd rather its breath struck none unawares. Here it lies wrapped in winter silk, a copy of Samaster's wicked brain pan, the tome of the dragon, nay, not the true one. That elder tome is near nigh indestructible save for a taste of silver fire, so the harpers assert, and I'll not be pouring mine out like ale to test tavern gossip. This is a faithful spawn, though the cult has birthed many a corrupted variation besides the one you see before thee. Look ye upon it, 14 by 10 inches if ye fancy measuring, clasped with the cult's sigil in gilded gold, as proud and plain as the tyrant's seal who first formulated its depravity. Touch it with naked skin, and you'll learn quick that a book may breathe. Black, blue, green, red, or white. Whatever worm's temper it keeps, the breath comes roaring, and never a singe or mark upon the tome. Ye there, keep your ringed fingers back, lass. I like you with eyebrows. What swims inside its leaves? Samaster's voice, slick as oil on a cellar stair. Power has its own beauty. Perhaps the most beautiful combination of grace and might among the mortal creatures of Toril is a dragon. So murmurs the mad. And deeper still, more poison in a polite teacup. Benevolence is the best mask for manipulation. There is a time for the ravening assault and a time for deft misdirection. Aye, ye know the sort that smiles while counting graves. He wrote his conclusions neat as accounts, theories, trials, and the making of Dracoliches like recipes for a winter stew. The cult copied it line by patient line, and then the copies learned to lie, their truths held in passages that weren't entirely accurate. Some pages reversed themselves when the moon tilted upon the page, some whispered in Draconic at dawn, and this one you see before thee, well, I wouldn't ask. It has a habit of behaving irrationally. So, warm your wine, but mark me well, all are ye. There's a time for the ravening assault, true. Yet when ye stalk worms who've learned to live beyond dying, the wiser blade is patience, and a door that opens only for the hunter. Now then, who among you will hold the lantern while I turn the page? Yea, good. Keep your hands steady, and if the air tastes of copper, run. Chapter 1. The Cult at a Glance. And naught will be left save shattered thrones with no rulers. But the dead dragons shall rule the world entire. As the purple-robed figure on the platform continued to intone the litany, Harnath Tomor, lesser mage of the Cult of the Dragon, gave only part of his attention to the speaker. The other half was focused on the incredible sight before him. An aged blue dragon, its serpentine form at rest, on the platform next to the wearer of purple. As he watched the ceremony continue, Harnath's chest swelled with pride. At last, here was the day that he had waited and worked for since he first joined the cult. Today, he would see the ultimate proof of Samaster's wisdom as the dragon abandoned its fetters of life and became a sacred one, a Dracolich, and the dominion of the dead dragons shall endure until the end of all things. So we swear, concluded the wearer of purple. So we swear, echoed the dozens of cultists who stood expectantly within the Chamber of Ascendance. From somewhere within the folds of his ceremonial garb, the officiating cultist withdrew two objects, a clay flask and an enormous ruby. Unstoppering the flask, the cultist proffered it to the dragon. Gracefully, the blue worm extended its huge head. The cultist obliged, pouring the contents of the flask onto its tongue. A collective "ah" went through the watching humans, and Harnath hoped that he could catch a hint of a strange scent in the air. Sulfur. Suddenly, the dragon's jaws clenched tightly together, and the wearer of purple snatched his hand away, barely in time. A spasm racked the great creature's body, and then it slumped forward on the platform and lay still. A brilliant light flared off the ruby, spilling over into the hand of the wearer of purple. The light flared once and then receded until it became a muted but constant glow. It was done. The first part of the transformation was complete. By the time the sun set this evening, Faerun would know a new terror. The members of the Cult of the Dragon believe that it is Faerun's destiny to be ruled by undead dragons. The cult takes upon itself the responsibility of helping that destiny along, directing all its plans and energies toward gaining the wealth and magical power necessary to transform living dragons into undead Dracoliches. Cult members undertake magical research, espionage, mercantilism, and a variety of criminal activities to fund and support their goal in anticipation of the day when the undead dragons will hold sway over the entire world. Many cult members are therefore criminals, though in their minds and in the minds of their peers, they are heroic and devoted individuals who take great personal risks on behalf of the organization. More than one adventurer has remarked on the fact that the minds of the cult's current members, including the cult's founder, the Archmage Samaster, are not always entirely balanced. Indeed, some are quite mad, though their insanity makes them all the more dangerous in the deadly serious pursuit of their goals. The cultists venerate dragons to the point of worshipping them as deities, and certain dragons, lured by promises of eternal unlife and overwhelming power, revel in the attention. Over 4 centuries have passed since the cult of the dragon first appeared in Faerun, and another century before that since the cult's founder and first leader, Samaster First Speaker, was born. Samaster was a powerful archmage who became one of Mestra's chosen, an honor that proved too great a burden. The archmage's mind could not bear the divine power, and Samaster eventually went insane. By the time the deity rescinded her gift, it was too late. Samaster was incurably mad. Suffering from terrible delusions, the mad archmage insisted that he possess special insight into the future of Toril, its people, and its deities. He began collecting both well-known and obscure works of oracular knowledge and translating them, or reinterpreting them, as the cult's detractors and enemies would have it, as validation of his claims. In the pages of one of these tomes, Maglas's Chronicle of Tears to Come, Samaster discovered a cryptic prophecy that he believed predicted that undead dragons would eventually rule the world. Thus inspired, the irrational archmage gathered a band of followers and persuaded them that his foretelling of the future was accurate. In 902 DR, the Cult of the Dragon created its first Dracolich, using necromantic formulas that Samaster inscribed in his magnum opus, Tome of the Dragon. Samaster eventually died, or, as some cult members believe, became a lich and disappeared. Today, the inheritors of his terrible knowledge, continue to carry out his legacy. Chapter 2. The cult's founding. The ward hisses. I turn the leaf, and there it squats, bold as a herald, lads and lasses. Mark it ye. When the ink of 905 DR dried, Samaster took his pretty wickedness to market. He hissed a prophecy. The dead dragons shall rule the world, and many a worm cocked an ear. He bound countless crazed humans by the gilded claw, ye see on the clasp, set smooth-tongued worm-speakers to court great serpents, and taught the craft to yoke soul to bone, till dragon rose again as Dracolich. Thus, from a scholar's ledger to a creed, and from creed to banner, the cult of the dragon slithered forth, benevolence on the tongue, dominion in their teeth. Keep your fingers back. Every next line could have a sharp tooth to follow. In earlier years, in regards to the cult's founding, Samaster, Algashon, and their band of followers settled the city-state of Chondathan and set up a headquarters of sorts for themselves. Chondathan was renamed Saarloon some years after the founding of Sembia in 913 DR. They continued to preach and attract followers, and these converts, needing a title to refer to their leader, coined the honorific first speaker to honor the founder of their cult. It was while Samaster was in Chondathan that he unveiled the rings of dragons for the first time. And the members of the cult, under Samaster's leadership, began the experiments that would reach fruition in the year of the Queen's Tears, 902 DR, when Samaster convinced the great red worm Shargraila, whose lair was in the mountains near the headwaters of the Immerflow in the Thunder Peaks, to undergo the conversion process into a Dracolich. Shargraila may not have been the first dragon to imbibe the vile concoction Samaster created to set the process in motion, but he was the first to survive it. Shargraila went on to become the most powerful Dracolich ever seen on the face of Faerun. With the successful creation of a Dracolich, or as Samaster at first called his creation, a night dragon, the nascent cult in Chondathan exploded in popularity and in wealth. With an overwhelmingly effective weapon to enforce his will, Samaster soon acquired huge fortunes by using the threat of Shargraila to extort monies throughout the former city-state colonies of Chondathan that would become Sembia. His fearful shadow swept over caravans, marketplaces, and merchants. Even the rich nobles paid tribute when the cult threatened to send Shargraila to burn their farmlands and villas to ash. Samaster did not think to oppress the peasants for their coppers, as it seems they were as far beneath his notice as they were to many of the nobles themselves. It would take until the year of the plough, 960 R, for the use of the appellation Cult of the Dragon to describe Samaster's cult to finally become popular. The name likely originated among the local peasantry, who all too often were witness to the group's crimes and its most potent weapon, Shargraila. While some scholars point out that Cult of the Dracolich, or Cult of the Dracoliches, would have been far more appropriate titles for this group, they forget that so soon after the conversion process, Shargraila still appeared to be a normal living dragon. And as members of Samaster's cult picked up the usage of the name to refer to themselves, knowing as they did of the less public activities of cult members who were involved in enticing new dragons for the conversion process and discovering dragon lore to be used to manipulate dragons in the future, the name of Samaster's cult became fixed. The cult in Chondathan soon grew too large for even Samaster and Algashon to manage, and offshoot cells began to establish themselves in the city-states of Chancel Gaun, later renamed Selgaun, and Yorn. Samaster was even able to persuade another worm, Rolglothgor, who later laired in the ruins of the Tranquil Tower near Lake Semba, to undergo the preliminary preparations for Dracolichdom, and the cult began preparing him a host to contain his spirit during his eventual transcendence. Algashon was thrilled by the progress of events since that day in the Evermoors. Samaster's madness had not affected his drive and ambition, and the mage now willingly, with no coercion, did most of the evil work the priest of Bane had considered it his goal to manipulate Samaster into doing. Algershon was determined to expand the cult beyond a few hundred members in one wealthy but otherwise unimportant city-state and a mere score in two others. Besides, thought the priest, operating such a large organization so openly, so brazenly, would soon attract attention from other power groups. He therefore mentioned to Samaster that the mage should create a collection of all his wisdom, prophecies, formulae, and procedures concerning the creation of night dragons. Algershon could then have the book reproduced and distributed to many of the members of the cult who had come from distant towns and lands. These members could be dispersed back to their homelands, taking a copy of this tome with them and spreading Samaster's word and his cult far and wide. The idea of his life's work forming the written ideology and secret knowledge of the organization played to Samaster's vanity and growing megalomania as something right and proper, and he created the Tome of the Dragon over the course of 3 years. Cult scribes then set immediately to copying the information. Algershon's masterstroke of evil inspiration resulted in the creation of this magical tome, and the distribution of many lesser tomes that spread Samaster's ideology and his cult throughout the Heartlands, the North, and beyond. Algershon was also correct about the cult attracting the attention of other power groups in the realms. The Harpers soon mobilized to infiltrate, disable, and destroy the cult cell in Chondathan before Samaster's evil could thoroughly infest the newly formed country of Sembia. Sembia was formed in 913 DR, under the banner of Rauthover the Raven, commander of the new nation's military for the Overmaster, the elected merchant ruler of the nation. While they had some successes, they failed to destroy Shargraila and could not prevent the spread of the cult's ideology across the face of Faerun. The forces of Zentil Keep also allied themselves against the cult after Samaster demanded extortionate safe passage fees from their caravans, both trade and slave. Of course, the Zents refused to pay, and Shargraila was sent out from his lair in the Thunder Peaks to raid several Zent outposts along the River Tesh and southward between Shadow Gap and the River Tesh. The Zents were not cowed by this display of power, though instead they became one of the cult's most dangerous foes, which they remain to this day. The flush of wealth and success that the cult felt soon faded as powerful adversaries continued to array themselves against the actions of the followers of Samaster. But this did not deter the Mad Mage. He pressed on, creating several more night dragons in the following years, at least some of which were forced into the conversion process by cult strike forces and the threat of death at the claws and fangs of Shargraila should they turn down the cult's offer of immortality. Rather than develop contingency plots for dealing with the cult's newly acquired enemies of stature, Samaster ignored them or simply dispatched a night dragon to deal with any foes that were discovered. Not merely mad now, Samaster was becoming drunk with a level of power he had not felt since before he'd been stripped of his powers as one of the Chosen. Algershon tried to dissuade his mad partner from some of his more blatant schemes, counselling caution and a lighter, defter hand in running the cult's affairs. He often proposed that the cult go underground, making it a less obvious target for its accumulating foes. Samaster refused, blinded by his visions of power and revenge against the world that had wronged him. Seeing that he was rapidly losing his controlling grip on the Mad Mage, Algershon began to plan. Chapter 3. Organisation through Dragons.
Mind ye the ash? I'm turning the page. There. The sanctum now hums like a bee's choir, and all o' ye listen close. The cult builds itself through dragons, not merely round them. At the top perch of the scales they serve, great worms and proud elders, then come the wearers of purple, or worm speakers when Tiamat's fashion holds, each courting a patron worm and ruling a clutch o' cells. Beneath them, dragon fangs to work the dread rites, dragon wings to fly a master's will, dragon claws to fetch coin, corpses, and fools who flee. Every cell a tale that wishes to think for itself ahead, but the true crown is the dragon whose hoard feeds all. Break the dragon, or steal its hoard, and ye starve 3 divisions at once. Now you wanted proof of their latest mischief. Hold fast.
Elminster eases a canvas bundle into the silver fire ward. The air curdles cold. A lantern gutters.
This pretty thing was once a Dracolich's head, prized from a Thayan reliquary with tongs and a few impolite words. See the socket? A lattice or onyx set where the tear duct should be. The cult, as many of thee are aware, binds the enchantment magic there, a tyrant's bit in the bone. Ye crack the lattice, the skull stops whispering orders to the rest of the remains. Aye, ye heard aright, they've learned to parcel commands through seemingly discardable remains. So organization through dragons, aye, living pride atop the retinue, deathless bone beneath whoso death and destruction, and a skein of greed tying both. You break it by unseating the patron worm, or by finding the cracks in the hoard. Now, if ye've a stout stomach, I'll tap this skull once to make it sing the chain it's bound to. Briefly, mind ye. Step within the ward, keep your wits sharp, and if the breath starts to burn, move aside and let an old man earn his pipeweed.
The cult of the dragon continues its founder's work by organizing itself into a number of independent cells, each with a specific purpose and role to play in the group's larger plans. The teachings of Samasta have attracted a limited number of followers, some of them as delusional as he was, others lured by the promise of great rewards gained by means other than honest toil. Many of the cult's current members are sane, so far, but exhibit other defects of mind or character that convince them that the cult offers a path to their desires that is quicker and easier than any other. Individual cells comprise the basic units of the cult's organizational structure. Even as each cell is specialized, so too do rank, function, and purpose differentiate the members' roles. Any given cell normally has from 10 to 100 members, depending on its relative importance in the cult's great schemes. The cell's hierarchy is based on a structure followed throughout the cult. So because of their purple ceremonial robes, the wearers of purple are the chief authority in every cell. Small cells have only one wearer of purple at the helm, but larger cells can have several, all acting, theoretically, in concert as part of a coalition. More than a few wearers of purple are necromancers who seek out Cult of the Dragon cells for the specific purpose of joining their ranks. These necromancers oversee the complex process by which a living dragon is transformed into a Dracolich. They also create magic items, both for use by cult members and as gifts and bribes to evil dragons. It is additionally their burden to make up the shortfalls left by the cult due to the scarcity of clerics among its membership. These wizards cannot afford to be armchair generals if the cult is to achieve its goals. When a cell faces danger from enemies, the wearers of purple must lead their forces against the enemy. The cult offers necromancers access to the otherwise difficult-to-find research conducted by Samasta, and the chance to work directly with some of the most powerful undead creatures in all of Faerun. Others join to further their own ambitions, or because they found the endless internal conflicts of other organizations, such as the Zentarim, unsatisfactory to their tastes. Below the wearers of purple are the lesser members of the cell, their designations determined by the cell's specific function. The senior members of the cult are unequally divided into 2 camps: those who believe completely and wholeheartedly in Samasta's prophecies, and those who pretend to do so for their own reasons. The latter few are most often individuals who see membership in the cult as a way to fulfill whatever personal desires they may have for power, wealth, self-importance, magical knowledge, or even amusement. What's the harm in working toward a Faerun ruled by undead dragons, they reason, if it makes me rich, powerful, and important along the way. These members suspect that the cult won't ever reach its goals, but there's no denying that having a Dracolich or two as an ally certainly makes a life of crime a lot easier. The fanatics, however, are the really dangerous members of the cult, and they make up the bulk of the membership at the higher levels. They believe so strongly and completely in their insane goal that they are willing not only to die for it, but also to take anyone else who may get in their way along with them. Many people who aid the cult of the dragon don't even know that they are doing so. These folk are the bandits, mercenaries, merchants, and smugglers who go about their normal activities in return for payment, unknowing and uncaring of their employer's identity. But some do know and purposefully seek out the cult with the intention of becoming members. Why would an otherwise ordinary person decide to join a group of power-hungry wizards who use the demented ravings of a long-dead madman to transform dragons into undead monstrosities as a prelude to conquering the world? For starters, some power-hungry recruits lack the talent, wealth, or charisma to attain that power on their own. The cult offers them a way to sate that hunger in a way that's more viable than vague, self-generated plans to conquer the world. Others are greedy and relish the coin that the cult generates. The promise of future power is merely an added enticement to the avaricious. Still others are the descendants of previous members, and they intend to carry on the family tradition. A fair, some might say alarming, number of the average cultists either believe or come to believe very strongly in the prophetic doom pronounced by Samaster. Those who have seen the terrible grandeur and awesome power of a Dracolich begin to believe that the crazy old Archmage may have been onto something after all. To many ordinary folk, a dragon might as well be a deity. It might not be able to grant divine spells, but it ranks among the most powerful mortal creatures on Toril. When the chance of one's patron deity coming to one's aid in time of difficulty is unlikely at best, the cult's Dracoliches and evil dragons can serve as reliable allies. Additionally, the notion of an impending apocalypse is appealing to some people, particularly those who are convinced that only the true believers will survive the doomsday and inherit the new world. Dragons in general are a notoriously self-centered race, and none more so than the evil dragons of Faerun. Yet the cult approaches these incredibly powerful beings routinely, visiting their lairs to advise them of the great destiny that awaits them. Cultists bring large gifts of treasure to the dragons they visit, as a contribution to their hoards, another reason why the cult requires such a large amount of cash. They flatter the dragons, praise their skill and cunning, offer to provide any services that the dragons may desire, and, usually on a visit subsequent to the first, read to the dragon from Samaster's Tome of the Dragon. Some evil dragons deal regularly with the cultists, exchanging the cult's services for permission to shelter in the dragon's lair in times of emergency. Cult cells serve as the eyes and ears of the evil dragons with which they have allied. Others dismiss the cultists as crazed fools, and the cultists generally leave these dragons alone, at least for a generation or two. More than one dragon that rejected a deputation from the cult of the dragon centuries ago is more disposed to treat with them after 200 or 300 years have passed, particularly the lesser dragons that haven't done as well for themselves as they had hoped to do. There's no harm, these creatures reason, in allowing the cultists to add some new traps to the lair, if all that's required is paying attention to some ancient prophetic writings, which many evil dragons find quite interesting when they actually pay attention. While the cultists venerate the evil dragons, their visitations and offers of aid also have ulterior motives. First, to persuade the dragons to cooperate actively with the cult, and second, to eventually convince the dragons to undergo the transformation into lichdom. Many folk mistakenly assume that the cult of the dragon exercises complete control over the Dracoliches it creates. Dracoliches are, just like living dragons, independent-minded creatures that can and do embark on plans and schemes of their own, presumably to keep themselves occupied while they wait for Samaster's predictions to come true. Dracoliches do cooperate regularly with the cult, however, exchanging their protection for the cultists' services. A Dracolich might agree to destroy a merchant vessel or caravan, for instance, so that a cult cell can persuade a noble or merchant to cooperate. In return, the cult brings the Dracolich offerings of treasure and valuable information, and provides reassurance that the end times for Faerun are indeed approaching quickly. The ward falls like a lantern lid, and the skull's whisper shrinks to a gnat's itch. The sanctum hums, aye, it hears the horde scent, and braids a dozen roads to one. There's our trail, say I, stowing bone and book alike. Aye, let us remember the words of a not-so-popular chosen of Mystra. 1. Last time. Those who would oppose us shall fall to ruin and death in the jaws of the dead dragons. And their bodies shall crack, and their hair shall burn, and they will know in their last moments that theirs was the path of folly. For the reign of the dead dragons cannot be forestalled, cannot be thwarted, cannot be broken, and naught will be left save shattered thrones with no rulers. But the dead dragons shall rule the world entire.